Welcome to the Marvelous Middle Age Podcast, where we are building a community of people who are in the midst of midlife, sharing our stories and learning from each other along the way. Each week, I'll have a guest join me to discuss a topic that impacts our lives and touches on some aspect of midlife. We'll discuss relationships, transitions, health and well-being, parenting, careers, and more. My goal is to encourage and support you and help you thrive as you navigate this adventure of midlife. Join me here each week for the Marvelous Middle Age Podcast. This week, we are speaking with an Enneagram 7, the Entertaining Optimist. We're going to get into what all of that means here in just a minute, but I'd like to introduce my Enneagram 7 today, Megan Knatz. Megan,
Hello.
welcome.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm so glad that you're here. Before we get into the details about what it's like to be an Enneagram 7, can you just briefly introduce yourself and who you are, share a little bit about your family and what you do?
Yes. So I am Megan Knatz. I am your younger sister.
Not by much, though. Not by much.
We always
Not that
emphasize,
much younger.
We always
No.
emphasize the younger part.
No.
Gosh, I am a mother of two, almost both adult children. My daughter Ashton, who is 23, and my son Jack, who is 17, almost 18, almost an empty nester. So both of my kids will be gone as of this summer. I'm a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
I currently own 2 wedding venues. Absolutely love that. My passion is animals and animal rescue. It's been that way since I was a little girl.
Yeah. I can attest to that.
Yeah, right.
Rescuing bunnies,
Bringing stray
neighborhood
animals in
cats,
the house.
hiding them in the house so our parents wouldn't
trying
find
to
them.
hide. I thought I was sneaky, but it's a little hard to hide a dog in the house. So I'm on the board of directors for an animal shelter in our town. I volunteered there for a couple of years and they asked me to join their board. And I absolutely love that. And I am a true Enneagram 7.
Yes,
so I'm
you
glad
are.
to be here today to talk about it.
Yes. When I was learning about the Enneagram, I think it was before I even told you about it, I was reading a book that kind of had an overview of all the 9 types. And I read about a 7 and I said, if you're not a 7, I don't know what number you are, because I read it. I'm like, this has to be. And I didn't tell you. I think you figured that out for yourself, which is kind of how it's all supposed to work. But yes, you are my sister, my younger sister.
For sure.
Sure,
So
whatever.
much younger.
Keep bragging about that. But you are a 7, and 7s are, you absolutely need a 7 in your life. They are wonderful, positive, fun people who are usually up for just about anything.
Yes.
And everybody needs a 7, I think.
I
is
think
what
so
we-
too.
What we decided, didn't we? Everybody needs a 7. So the 7 is the Entertaining Optimist. And I'm just going to quickly go through the core fear, desire, weakness, and longing of a 7 and just kind of share some overall characteristics about 7s. So 7s, your core fear, if you will, is being deprived, trapped in emotional pain, limited or bored, missing out on something fun. And again, as a reminder, the Enneagram is based on your motivations. So it's not based on your behavior, it's the why. So if you're listening to this and you think you might be a 7, think about why you do what you do, if this resonates with you at all. The core desire for a 7 is being happy, fully satisfied, and content. The core weakness of a 7 is gluttony, feeling a great emptiness inside and having an insatiable desire to fill yourself up with experiences and stimulation in hopes of feeling completely satisfied and content. And your core longing, it's just the deep longing in your heart, is that you will be taken care of. So 7s, something that they fear is that no one is going to be there to take care of them. And so you look for people, experiences, stimulation, things to fill that void that you have. And what 7s need to remember is that they are fully cared for and loved. They don't always have to seek out these experiences to fill that. And I think one of the things that sevens struggle with is just staying kind of present in
Mm-hmm.
the moment and not always looking outward to future things. What's the next things? What's the new thing? That kind of thing. So those are just some characteristics of seven. Again, this is a very high level overview. I'm going to link in the show notes more details about sevens so that if you think you're a seven or you think you know someone who's a seven, you can read more about that. So to kind of back up a little bit, how did you first learn about the Enneagram and what was interesting to you about the Enneagram?
Yeah, you introduced me to the Enneagram, and I think I had also heard about it through different podcasts, and we both kind of, were like, this sounds like something we need to explore. I love assessments of not only personality, but skill set and motivations. And so I believe it's been a while because I've known about the Enneagram for quite some time. I believe I did take an online test, maybe through the Enneagram Institute, their free test online.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also had me read a book, The Road Back to You. And I tested as a 7. It wasn't a question, but that book really, I was just, how you're nodding along and yes,
Mm-hmm.
the whole time. And it, there wasn't a question for me about my type. It was very clear. So
Good.
yeah.
How did you feel when you realized that, yep, I'm a 7? Because I remember something you said to me
Ooh.
when you realized you were a 7. You said, I sound like a jerk. The way that sometimes in Enneagram writings, and I'm not saying this is true of every Enneagram writing, but sometimes it's written kind of to show you where your areas of opportunity or challenge are, which can kind of help you figure out your type. Some writings lean that way. They lean a little bit more. I don't want to say negative because they're not negative, but they lean in that. And so you had been reading some things, and I think you said to me, I sound like a jerk. And I said, no, you're not. But we've talked about how you sometimes don't understand, why does everybody not want to do what I want to do when I want to do it, and things like that. So how did that make you feel when you realized you were a 7?
Yeah, it made me feel a couple of different ways. It made me feel the side of, the gluttony, the always seeking something new, the kind of constant pursuit of needing stimulation made me feel like, oh, that's really shallow, or that's really, I guess as a 7, you don't want to see it that way. And I'll explain kind of how I don't, or I have a little trouble recognizing that. I also felt very seen in that I thought, this is who I am, right? I thought the way I feel about life or doing things or experience, I'm like, this is me. And so I felt very, like, I knew I was a 7. I resonated with it. It wasn't like, oh, maybe I am or not. So very seen, very like hit the nail on the head. So that was really a cool feeling too. Like, oh, there's other people probably like me. This is not just me being crazy or
Right.
way out there in left field, always having these thoughts or feelings, or it's part of, like, there's other people like me. It's part of who I am. So
Right.
yeah, I felt very seen too.
That's great. And I think that's something that we all strive for, is to just feel seen, that there's something or someone that sees us and acknowledges all the wonderful things that we bring to the table. But also for us to acknowledge where we struggle
Yes.
a little bit. And so I think that's really important. So the 7s tend to seek out new experiences, as you mentioned, and they want to feel satisfied and content. But they also try to avoid pain and sadness or disappointment in their lives. Do you resonate with that? And if so, how does that play out for you in terms of how you kind of generally tend to navigate through the world?
Yes. I would say it resonates with me when I have time for self-reflection to think about how I behave, but in the moment I don't acknowledge that that's what I'm doing, if that makes sense, right? So I don't say to myself, I want to go do this thing so I don't feel sad. I don't know if other 7s are that way. I just think I want to go do this thing or have this happy moment because it feels good, right? Not because of like, I'm sad, let's fix that. So when I self-reflect, I think that's a coping mechanism, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it maybe in the moment I don't necessarily recognize that.
Mm-hmm.
How it feels to be a 7 in real life, I think, is that I I love everything, right? There's not
Yep.
I love the littlest moments of baking cookies, going for a walk. I love challenges and adventure. Case in point, I think of things that most people are like, this is not fun. My kids the other day, we've been exercising. We're in the new year and we're really getting back into our fitness. I'm like, let's go walk the golf course. And like, it'll be a fun challenge. And bless their hearts, they both did it. And it ended up not being fun at all because it was too cold and windy. But like, that like gets me excited. I think things like that are fun. I also, so I'm constantly looking for fun in mundane things every day. And I find it fun. I love planning a fun day, but it doesn't have to be anything extreme. It can be, so I think for me, when it says seeking out new experiences, I'm not constantly elevating the level of excitement that I need. I'm just trying to find excitement in everyday things. And then I never want it to end, where sometimes other people get tired. It's enough. I'm like, let's keep going. Let's go to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And sometimes I do exhaust myself. And I'm like, it's like you almost can't stop yourself from, but it doesn't feel bad. It feels fun. And like you mentioned, the last thing I'll say about that is if I have a fun idea, which I constantly have them, or what I think is fun, is and at 40, I'm almost 47. I have not figured out how to read the room sometimes in this situation where I'm like, why does everyone else not think this is fun? And I don't get upset, but I'm like literally perplexed. Like, why do you guys not want to go do this thing, that thing? Like, how is that not fun? Yeah. So, that is a challenge for me as a 7, is maybe understanding that that's not fun for everybody, or everybody doesn't have the same desire to keep going like I do.
Right.
So.
Right. And again, I think why I say everybody needs a 7 is because I think you need someone in your life who is willing to put themselves out there and do the things and be up for doing something, whether it's fun or just doing the thing. Right.
Sure.
And I think when you have someone like that in your life, like I know you've gotten me to do things that I probably wouldn't have done. Or we've made plans that I probably wouldn't have if you had not been there to encourage, and things like that. So I think that's where 7s can be such an asset, or getting people to just try things. Like I know when it comes to business, you've shared that you're always just willing to try something. And if it doesn't work out, okay, we'll reflect back, figure out why, and move on and try the next thing. And I think that's such a great skill to have, especially being someone like yourself that's an entrepreneur, because that's what entrepreneurs do. A lot of entrepreneurs fail, a lot before they become successful, right?
Right.
You have always, I think in business too, have been willing to try things, and if it doesn't work, we'll move forward. We'll figure it out. We'll go from there. It's not the end of the world, where someone else might be like, oh my gosh, I failed. I'm done. I'm over. It's over.
Right.
You're like, no, dust myself off, get back up. That is such an asset to have.
Yeah. I think, I think so too. My 7ness wants to reframe everything and it's okay. Positivity, so, that is a great skill set to have. It has helped me because you could really kind of dig in and get really bummed out in business, for sure. Business is hard. So yeah, it has been helpful.
Absolutely. So part of each of the episodes we're doing is we're not only just talking about the type, focusing on the type of for this episode, but also just touching on stress and growth. So every Enneagram type goes to traits of other types in stress and growth. So in stress, when you're feeling overwhelmed, stressed out, things are challenging, 7s move towards the unhealthy traits of a type 1. Okay. And so ones, for everyone's just a reminder, are the moral perfectionists. And so I'm going to share some of those unhealthy type 1 traits. And I want you to comment to see if you resonate with any of those when you are feeling particularly stressed, overwhelmed, things are rough. Do you see these playing out for you during tough times? So these are some of the unhealthy traits of a type 1: imposing restrictions and limitations on themselves to try to be more productive. You become more irritable and critical of themselves. Notice and point out imperfections in yourself, in other people, in the world. You become perfectionistic and judgmental, wanting others to live up to higher ideals. You get upset with others who are preventing you from experiencing fun. And you micromanage people who who you don't feel are maybe being particularly responsible. Do you see any of those
Yes.
playing out?
Yes. When I am frustrated or overwhelmed, I totally resonate with the perfectionistic characteristics, which typically that's such a deviation from my normal way of thinking, right? I'm like, we'll try again. It's fine. Not a big deal. Of myself and others, when I'm stressed, it's like, I feel like I know the only way to do the thing and nobody else is going to get it right.
Yeah.
I need to take over. And then I get very turned inward in not a positive way, where I'm judging other people and how they're doing something and if they're not listening to me. And so I turn inward in a judgmental, perfectionistic way, for sure. Yeah, I recognize that.
Yeah. And I think with the Enneagram, and I know I've personally found this to be helpful, is understanding where you go in stress can many times help you also determine your type. If you're someone who's maybe stuck between 2 or 3 types, it can help you to determine that. But it also gives you some areas to focus on. And just if you know that about yourself, you're not going to get it right every time. But if you see yourself starting to trend that way, it's like a rumble strip, right? It's giving you a rumble strip on the road that lets you know when a stoplight is coming up. That's what your stress path does for you. It lets you know, oh, okay, I'm heading down a path here. It's alerting me this, why am I feeling this way? What's going on? How can I course correct? That kind of thing. So I think it's important to know where we go in stress in our lives. But on the other side of that, when we talk about growth, so in growth, type 7s move towards the healthy side of a type 5. And the 5s are the investigative thinkers. And here's some traits of a healthy 5. They are focused on their inner world and learn to relax. They allow their quick mind to rest instead of being hyperactive, finding more clarity and insight. They accomplish tasks in line with their passions by becoming more organized and structured. Become grounded, focused, and more profound. They place more value on wisdom and discipline. They become more accepting of all of life, good and bad, happy and sad. So do you see that happening for you? And share a little bit about that.
I do. I think when in growth, I turn inward as well, but in a more introspective way, where I will take time, think through things in kind of a quiet way, where I'm not necessarily looking for outside validation or ideas. I'm just kind of thinking, stewing on things, and I'll kind of come to my own solution through a more relaxed, investigative lens versus just experience and chasing highs and things like that. So it's been very helpful. I also think that relaxing's hard for me because it feels sometimes it doesn't feel productive. It doesn't feel fun, but I can relax a little bit more and just ease into knowing that maybe today is a day where, there's nothing new to do. There's nothing fun to do. There's nothing exciting to do. And that's okay. I also don't always have as high of expectations of, other people. I'm just kind of more in to myself and my thoughts,
Right.
and I don't expect other people to join along. I've been really working on that. That has been kind of a goal for myself, is that if you, Megan, want to go do something or want to, or, um, you can do it on your own. You don't
Sure.
have to have other people on board. You can do it yourself. You can, the shelter, my love of the shelter and working with animals has been, I still try to get everybody to bring an animal home. Don't get me wrong.
Yes, she does.
Ask my sister.
She does. Watch out.
Yeah, but that's kind of become my thing. And again, I have a great tribe of people that in that community, but I've thought this is just something I'm into. Not everybody else has to be into this. And I'm still working on it all the time, but I could see the healthy 5 traits coming out in me. And that feels really good at times, to be able to kind of slow down a little bit. And I like those feelings. Yeah.
Right. I think it's good to be able to pause, turn inward sometimes, especially if you tend to be a person who's always seeking out things externally, kind of taking that time for yourself. I think it's healthy, not just mentally, but physically as well, because I think that your body sometimes lets you know when you're going too hard and too much before your brain actually recognizes it. And so slowing down, exhibiting more of those type 5 traits, I think is really, really helpful for 7s. And so I'm glad that you're seeing that and experiencing that. But it's just a kind of a constant thing. You always have to kind of keep it in your mind that it's okay to slow down and have some quiet time, to relax, and like you said, you can have interests that are just for you, that no one else has to be engaged with, a part of. You don't have to invite them in even to that.
Sure.
Which I think is good too. So if there's anyone out there that's listening to this episode that thinks they could be a 7 or they are a 7 and they're just looking for some encouragement, is there anything as a fellow 7 that you would say to them to just encourage them along their journey of self-discovery and awareness and growth? And if there's anything that's been helpful to you, besides just, learning about this, and because it's a lot.
It is. I think being a 7 is a superpower. I'm excited to be a 7. I think all types are great. Don't get me wrong. But I think, I'm proud to be a 7. I think you should be, if you have lots of ideas, if you like to experience things. Sometimes I think 7s can be seen as flighty or, kind of all over the place. And I think that's a great gift if you harness it in the right way. So I think you should be excited about being a 7 if you are. I think you should, don't let anyone dampen your spirit if you're a 7. But I also think you need to work toward being mindful of how you make others feel when you constantly want to do things and maybe they aren't as interested. But don't take that as rejection. Take that as, it's okay. It's okay if everybody's not interested. I have to work at that every day, all the time. Cause I think that can make 7s feel bad, right? If, so, it's okay. I think that's just part of it. And keep in mind that the way you feel and the way you see the world is great, is positive, and you can use it for so many positive things. So, that would be just kind of my advice to somebody who thinks they are or knows they are a 7.
Right. I love that. And 7, the type 7 is one that a lot of people want to be.
Sure.
And when they find out there's something else, they're bummed out. They're like, oh, I wanted to be a 7. They're the fun people, right? Well, yes, but there's a lot of layers. The Enneagram is very complex. And so it's not just the type. There's the stress and growth paths, as we talked about. There's wings. There's so many other layers within the Enneagram. And, but 7 is one of those types that they're like, oh, I want to be that. I want to be that fun, spontaneous person who wants to do all the fun, exciting activities. And so you should feel good about that people want to do that. Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts about being a 7. I think this will be really helpful for people who are either they know they're sevens or they're working on, discovering their type. I think this will help clarify a lot of things for people. But thanks for being on. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
If you're enjoying the podcast, please follow the show to make sure the latest episode is on your podcast feed each week. I would greatly appreciate a rating and a 5-star review on the podcast platform you're listening on. It helps others to find the show. If there are topics you'd like me to discuss on the show, please email me at themarvelousmiddleagepodcast@gmail.com or direct message me on Instagram at Nicole Stute. Thank you for listening.